Hi everyone, I'm Casey. In the last video, you saw the creation of this gingerbread church from scratch. Today, I'm going to take you through the whole decoration process. The design might look intricate and detailed, but trust me, the process is actually quite simple. So grab a cozy drink and join me as I transform these gingerbread pieces into a beautiful church. I like to lay all my pieces on these stackable baking trays, so everything is easily accessible but also out of the way. To create some intricate church windows and other details, I spent some time drawing them out on paper first. This step is so much fun because you get to be really creative. There is nothing worse than decorating everything to perfection only to realize your walls are wonky. One crucial step is ensuring all your pieces are the right size. So I shaved all my edges to make sure they were the same size and straight before moving on. With my piping bag loaded, I started on the line work for the windows. I cut a very small hole in my bag for super thin lines. I'm still experimenting to find the perfect icing consistency for line work. Ideally, it should come out with a little nudge, not too thick or too loose. I also used my stencil to cut guidelines into some of the pieces before baking them. This makes it much easier to pipe over the lines to get an even result each time. When I don't have a cut line to follow, I mark out the corners of the design with little icing dots and then just connect the dots. At this point, I noticed that some of my line work was a bit wonky. It did bother me in the moment, but I just kept going because when everything comes together, the small imperfections are hardly noticeable. There are 10 walls on this house that require windows. These 3 walls in particular will make up the beautiful back caved walls of the church. For the front of the church, I experimented with a cookie overlay to add extra dimension. I really love the effect this gives. I think these little extra details just add so much to the final design. To create the large circular front window, I used a cookie cutter to scratch the line of the circle into my cookie, making it super easy to create a beautiful circular line. I was really pleased with myself after this. Then I formed the window detail with a simple mandala design, which I've always loved drawing as a child, so it was really great to be able to use this now on my gingerbread art. I glued the overlay in place with a bit of Royal Icing. Next, we're going to move on to the roof decoration. For the roof detail, I took inspiration from another amazing gingerbread creator, Sofia Viola. So, for this roof design, first I spaced evenly placed dots along the edges of each of the roof pieces and connected them to create a diamond pattern. Then I added a dot in the middle of each diamond with a small line connecting the dot to the peak of the diamond. It looks like the little dots are dangling in place. It's so cute. With all the line work done, I moved on to the brickwork. For the brickwork icing, I created a slightly looser icing that flows with a slight nudge from the piping bag. The goal is for the icing to melt slowly into a glossy blob, forming our bricks. I made 3 slightly different earthy tones to make the brickwork more interesting and visually diverse. So after mixing each color, I poured the icing into my piping bags, cut the tips, and got started. I created a simple brick pattern with one of the colors onto each of the pieces. There are a lot of pieces needing brickwork, so I worked in batches. It already looked cute at this stage, but I like to fill in each brick. This is where I used my 3 colours to start blobbing in the bricks, being really careful not to touch the line work. This way it looks more like pebble bricks, which I really love. I repeated this process over and over and over again on all of the sides. These beams will protrude from the back of the building, so I needed to ice both sides. Once one side was fully dried and hardened, I turned them over and decorated the other side in the exact same way. The final pieces to decorate were the corner embellishments. I simply added a line border to each of them. By this stage, I was getting a bit tired, so my lines were getting a bit fast and loose, but as I said before, each wonky line won't be noticeable once it all comes together. Now all of the icing on all the gingerbread has dried, so it's time to build the church. I combined the leftover coloured icing from the brickwork with my thick glue consistency icing, adding a bit more brown food colouring to make my icing glue a similar colour to the gingerbread. I reuse a large plastic piping bag sometimes for my icing glue so that I can grasp it tightly and press the thicker icing from the piping bag. This is the glue that I'll use to piece all my gingerbread pieces together. I'm building onto a rotating cheese board that I got from IKEA to give me better access to all the sides. I really love this technique. This way I don't need to shift the house around too much while the pieces are setting in place. Once the base pieces are all glued together, I move on to the tower details. I made these in advance and set them aside to add them to the house later. I did the same for the peaks of the towers. Now that the base of the church has set together, I'm ready to add the roof. There are a few gaps where the pieces didn't fit together perfectly, but I'll fill these in with extra icing later, so no worries. One by one, I added all the extensions onto the base, starting with the side entrances. During the decorating, I left space for these extensions, so I had a guide for where to glue everything into place. Now the pieces just slot together nicely. Following the same process, I added the front towers. Each piece of the tower has its own little roof base, allowing me to stack the other pieces on top of one another a bit later. Finally, I added the roof pieces onto the side extensions and things were really coming together. Just a few more pieces to glue into place. The final details were added with the corner embellishments. These details add extra dimension and really make the design pop. In total, I spent approximately 4 hours over about 3 days decorating this church. Decorating is a really calming activity for me, especially after a long day of work. I get into the flow and I just love it. Thank you for watching, thanks for being here with me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye now.